So with the 2026 F1 car regulations being revealed a couple weeks ago, this means that we will have another era of racing where any team can show up and win everything. But what team could possibly do that in 2026? Could Red Bull once again dominate as they did in this era? Could Ferrari prance to the front again and add to their history? Could McLaren finally be the ones to beat again? Could Mercedes redeem their throne that they built by winning 8 championships in a row? Or could another team pull a blinder and catch everyone by surprise? The realm of possibility is endless, and in my opinion, each one of these has an equal chance of coming true. However, could there already be signs that point towards who the team to be will be in 2026? Or are there no hints and we're simply being delusional? Let's talk about it. Before we talk about and analyze the team's chances, let's first discuss what I think it means to lead F1 as a team. I think there are two main factors to this, and the first one is obviously performance. To put it simply, the leading F1 team is the team that leads in results, such as wins, podiums, and pole positions. The second main factor is the influence the team has. To put it simply, it's aura. The team that can influence the decisions that everyone around them makes is a leader. Obviously, the first factor matters the most, but the second factor almost always comes directly as a result of the first, so that's why I've included it as well. Now that we've discussed what it means to lead F1, in my opinion, let's now discuss which teams are most likely to lead F1 enter 2026 based on signs that have been set. Let's start with Red Bull, the current dominant team. In case you've forgotten, Red Bull will partner up with Ford to create engines in 2026, and the team from 2026 onwards will rebrand to Red Bull Ford. And according to reports from Christian Horny, Red Bull are hitting all the targets for their new engine, and their new facilities are already built as well. Now, obviously I would say Red Bull are definitely best in line to be, or rather stay as the leading team. However, there are already minor butts that can potentially turn into big butts come 2026, and the biggest one of them all is that Max Verstappen can lead Red Bull by 2026. And I know, I already hear you guys with your mom having balls in your grandma's wheels, but listen to me, and let me explain why this may seem more likely than it seems. If you've seen my Racing Bulls video, then you would know that Red Bull is a sinking ship, and Max Verstappen is the biggest jewel that can be lost from this, since Max has openly expressed that he doesn't really agree with F1's direction lately, and has even brought up retirement by 2028. So, couple Red Bull sinking ship plus Max's desire to see change or he leaves, then I really believe that if the 2026 cars are bad, he may just say bye 2 years early to pursue something else, like endurance, sports cars, or even sim racing full time. But like I said, mom's balls, so for all we know, Red Bull Ford can come in and immediately win everything, and we'll have to endure more Dutch and Austrian national anthems thanks to their best asset, which is obviously Max Verstappen. Next up, we have Ferrari, the once so dominant team. According to reports, the Ferrari 2026 engine unit seems to be working as intended and is also currently hitting their targets, but for how good this sounds, Ferrari have bigger concerns than the engine itself. See, ever since Adrian Newey announced his decision to be smart, Ferrari have been sniffing it around, hoping for another big signing that can greatly aid the team. But how likely is this? Well, it's definitely no secret that the team wants him, and I would say it is achievable since Fred Vasseur and John Elkann have such a way with words and money. So I don't think anyone is doubting their ways of getting him, but the sole question is not if Ferrari can get Adrian Newey, but if Adrian Newey wants to go to Ferrari. In my opinion, I would say that he does want to go and will probably sign, but take it with a grain of salt, since yet again, mother's balls, and also I am delusional, but there are sufficient facts to back this up. Newey has stated in the past that he is interested in not only working for Ferrari, but also working with Lewis Hamilton. And I mean, come on, it's two birds with one stone. And to me, that is more than enough evidence to say that he will be with Ferrari come 2026. However, even if Newey doesn't go to Ferrari and decides to retire instead, Ferrari can be optimistic since they have reportedly fired up their engine already, and recently, Ferrari have been cooking with new ride cars in their first years, which is a great thing and a bad thing. But Ferrari can be optimistic for 2026. Or maybe I just jinxed everything. Moving on, let's discuss McLaren, the team that used to be on top of the world. Since the end of 2012, McLaren fans have been quietly suffering since mid cars and trash cars have been their recent legacy. However, 2019 marked a new beginning, since they started working their way to the front again, and now in 2024, it's fair to say that McLaren are now, yet again, a front running team. But like I said in my video about a potential title fight, looking at McLaren's history of new cars on new regs, it doesn't look too good. However, let me explain why this will not repeat in 2026 and why McLaren fans should be very optimistic for the new era. Firstly, McLaren announced a while back that they will be sticking with Mercedes engines until 2030, and this is a great thing for reasons we'll discuss later in my Mercedes portion of the video. Secondly, McLaren have already demonstrated a good understanding of the draft 2026 car regulations, since ever since the car was revealed, they have been bashing the car non-stop, and yes, this is a good thing. This means that they know where the car is weak and may potentially work with or influence the FIA in fixing the cars, and this can give McLaren a good advantage over other teams. Now, yes, another case of ifs, but I don't want to hear it, since Mercedes from 2010 to 2013 showed good understanding of the 2014 engine regulations and worked with the FIA because of it. And what happened in 2014? Yeah. So if McLaren can get that treatment or at least continue to figure out the car more and more, then McLaren can finally rock up to 2026 with a very decent car and the best driver lineup on the grid. Now, let's get to Mercedes, the most talked about team for 2026. If you've been living under a rock, then listen up. It's been rumored for about 2 months now that Mercedes have by far the best engine for 2026, and recently, Mercedes have decided to play into this, with key figures like James Allison, George Russell, and Toto saying how optimistic they are and how awesome their engine is. And this is also backed up by how customer teams like McLaren and Williams are going to stick with Mercedes as their engine supplier, and they are also playing into the engine rumors. So, coupling all of this, surely these rumors are more than rumors and may just be a tiny teaser for 2026. Now, for how great this sounds, this can also be their downfall for good. Let me explain. If Mercedes are too confident in their specific thing, what if they completely suck elsewhere, or simply underestimate Ferraris, Fords, Hondas, and Audi's silence? A similar thing happened in 2022, where most teams were giving vague details about their car. Meanwhile, Mercedes were on PR heaven, only to rock up with a decent idea, but horrible execution. Now, I have no doubt that Mercedes will probably have a good and maybe the fastest engine for 2026, but they need to use that same focus for their car, since if they build a rocket brick while McLaren and Williams build a rocket ship, then I think Merc's reign of dominance can officially come to an end, and they'll go back to being the team that has the best engine, but not the best car. We discussed the big dogs now, but I think we must consider the other 6 teams. Oh wait, I think we must consider the other 3 teams. Firstly, let's discuss Audi. F1's newest entry have said multiple times they are confident they can succeed in F1. However, we should remember, their first couple years will probably be a launchpad for their later years in the sport, so in my opinion, we shouldn't expect too much immediately at least. Next, let's discuss Aston Martin Honda's partnership. Honda has been very quiet about their engine, besides a few articles here and there, saying how they're going to give a title fight to Red Bull, which, sure, they can believe that if they want. But I wouldn't say there's any alarms right now, since Alonso has re-signed and stated that he is confident in the partnership, so maybe we're thinking too negatively. But the funniest thing can happen, and oh my god, please let it happen. Next up is Williams, and Williams, I'm calling it now, will be the dark horses of the 2026 era. With a leader like James Vowles, and a driver like Alex Albon, and potentially a young rookie like Colapinto, O'Sullivan, or maybe if Sargent steps it up, they can actually build a good car and make it last, and add on the fast Mercedes engine, and I really believe we can see Williams on the podium regularly in this new era of cars. So after discussing every team's chances of being leaders enter 2026, who's gonna be the leader? Well, from Red Bull's targets being met, Ferrari having their engine ready, plus the addition of Adrian Newey potentially, McLaren's understanding of the draft car, plus the Mercedes partnership, and Mercedes' rocket engine and their optimism, as well as the other smaller teams' chances, I think that I could pinpoint the leading team to be either one of these two. Mercedes or McLaren. I think there is no doubt that the Mercedes engine is gonna be the engine teams want, and I think Williams for now is a little too far behind to be considered, so the current options are Mercedes or McLaren. Ultimately, it is all down to which one of the two builds the better car, and in my opinion, I think McLaren will be the winner of that discussion, but that's just based on pure vibes. One thing is for sure though, and that is that we can expect either the Mercedes F1 team or the McLaren F1 team to lead F1 in the new era. Also, just for funsies, I'm gonna rank what I believe to be the best teams going into 2026 from best to worst and what I think the gap will be visualized. Here we go. Number 1, McLaren, followed by Mercedes, then Red Bull Ford, then Ferrari, then Williams, then Aston Martin Honda, then Audi, then VCAR, then Haas, and finally Alpine, because I hate them. Anyways, that is what I believe the leader of the new 2026 era of Formula 1 will be. To reiterate, after looking at all the evidence presented to us, the leaders will be either Mercedes or McLaren, and it is ultimately down to who is going to have the better chassis and aero. But like I said before, mother's balls, so for all we know, it could be Haas winning everything come 2026, so everything should be taken with a grain of salt. Anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts on who you think will be the leaders of the new 2026 era, so please let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more content like this, and as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.